We're going to talk a little bit about financial independence. All right. Financial independence, the basics of it are pretty easy to understand, but I had a really fun experience this last week actually teaching it to one of my siblings that didn't know any of this stuff, which I'm a little embarrassed about that, my sibling didn't know this stuff because it means I didn't teach it to him yet. But you know what? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The basics are this, right? You got to figure out how much you spend, which my sibling didn't know. You got to figure out how much you have, right? Which tells you, where you're starting from. And then you can figure out the gap between what you need to be financially independent and what you currently have. The basic calculation is you take what you spend and you multiply it by 25. Okay, so if you spend $50,000 a year, you need 1.25 million. If you spend $100,000 a year, you need 2.5 million. If you spend $200,000 a year, you need 5 million. Okay, that's the basic calculation. That's what retirement is. It's a number, it's not a date, right? And so if you have 1 million and you need 4 million, well, that gives you a sense of how long it's going to take if you look at what you're spending and how much that's or what you're investing each year and how much that's earning, and how much you have right now. You can calculate out how long it is until you reach financial independence. And when people first do this, they typically aim for something that's often called lean fire, right? Which is like the bare minimum for you to meet what you have to spend on your life, right? So maybe your lean fire number is 2.5 million or something like that. You're like 2.5 million. Okay, well, we could take $100,000 a year out of that, and that would cover the basics. We could pay our taxes, we could pay our property taxes, we could pay, our insurance, and we could eat, and we could go on, a couple of road trips a year, and we're good, right? But what happens when people get near that area, right? Well, a couple of things happen. Number one, they realize that the money is starting to have more power than the job, okay? Because it can double in size every 7 to 10 years. And the return on it kind of starts mattering more than the amount of money you're putting into contributions. So people make changes in their life that they've been wanting to make. What that often looks like is going part-time, right? Maybe you're dropping call. Maybe you're not doing procedures you don't like. Maybe you take every Wednesday afternoon off and go golfing, whatever it looks like. But people make changes in their life. And the beautiful thing about financial independence is you don't have to be all the way there to make these changes, right? You don't have to be financially independent before you can go part-time. At a certain point, you get to what's called coast fire, which means you don't have to add anything to your portfolio and it's still going to get you to your financial independence number. And you can either, work less and earn less, or you can just spend more in the meantime. But it allows you to quit putting so much money toward your retirement goals. So even before you get to financial independence, there are benefits of taking care of your finances. But what typically happens once people hit their FI number, it's usually a lean FI number, is they go, I'd actually be a little happier if I could spend more money. And so they bump up their number a little bit. They're like, yeah, 2.5 million, I could live on that. If something bad happens, that's a number. I can cancel my disability insurance. I can cancel my life insurance, whatever. But I'd really rather spend, $150,000 a year instead of $100,000 a year. And that's going to take some more money. Right. And so they decide that they're going to keep going for a little while. They're going to keep working and saving and investing and waiting for their money to earn money, reinvesting that along the way. And that's pretty typical. When we became financially independent in 2018 or so, we looked at a few things we'd like to buy and maybe some ways in which we'd like to increase our lifestyle. Katie loves travel. She loves international travel. I don't love it quite as much as she does. I do think it's fun. I do go on several trips a year, but she loves it. I mean, she'd go like every month if she could. She thinks it's awesome. So we built in more travel into our lives, more travel into how much we needed to really be financially independent at our desired level. So that was a couple of more years before we kind of got to that point. And then when you're truly financially independent, you can't think of anything else you'd spend money on if you have it. You start looking around and seeing how you can change the world. And maybe that's leaving money to your kids. Maybe that's figuring out ways to improve their lives. Maybe it's helping them with down payments on their houses or something like that. Maybe it's giving money away to extended family members or just friends and people in need. Maybe it's supporting charities. Maybe it's building some sort of a legacy, right? There's all these things you can do if you continue to work after financial independence. And because the goal is not to be the richest person in the graveyard, right? The goal is not to, you're not competing against anybody else here. You don't need to be wealthier than your neighbor or the guy at the cocktail party or your partners at work or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that this is a single player game. It's you against your goals. And if you don't have goals that require all the money you have, maybe it's time to pick a few more goals, and they're probably likely giving goals. And most of us are not nearly as good at giving as we are at some of the other financial activities in our lives, like earning and saving and investing and spending. But you know what? It's an important one to learn how to do well, because it makes a difference, and you really can change some other people's lives for the better by doing so.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.